Chapter 42-24. Due to unknown reasons, Sogu is suddenly unable to find this site today. But don't worry, as long as you don't resist, the blood servant will not kill you. At most, they will destroy your magic core, burn your devil soul, and make you a waste for the rest of your life. Can the demon race, which respects the strong, accept a waste princess? Even if they can, they will only be looked down upon. Shui Jie's eyes almost spurt out fire. If it weren't for the blood servant blocking her, she would have already rushed over and torn Mo Lien to shreds. Smelly whore, Mo Lien, just you wait for this old lady. You'd better let the blood servant kill this old lady today. Otherwise, when I get out, I will absolutely tear that face of yours to pieces. Your Highness, quickly leave, don't worry about us, quickly leave the priest hall. Mayan looks at the blood servant rushing towards her, slightly squints her eyes, and glances at Mo Lien. From the first time they met yesterday, she felt that this Mo Lien was hostile towards her. Now it seems that it wasn't her misconception at all. Want to kill her. Let's see if she has the qualifications. However, these blood servants are really troublesome. The more they kill, the stronger they become, and the more tacit they become. They even seem to have a trace of spiritual wisdom. Shui Jie and Yao Dao's strength have reached demon generals, which is a high-level immortal king. It is reasonable to say that it is difficult to meet a worthy opponent in the world. But facing these 12 blood servants, they are clearly beginning to struggle. As the number of blood servants revives increases, she's afraid that they will completely fall into a disadvantageous position. If she wants to kill these blood servants, she must find their flaws. Mayan's mind turns, and the 7 absolute sword is already in her hand. But before she can draw her sword, a low old voice suddenly comes from behind her. Wa, ah, ha, xia, sha, ma. The old man's pronunciation is very strange, like meaningless syllables, but also like the chanting of an ancient spell. These sounds are like the ringing of a Buddhist bell, hitting the depths of people's souls. Mayan's eyes slightly widen, her face revealing a surprised expression. What is this sound? That strange feeling, she even feels that it's like the music played by the Tian Imo Chin's Shin musician skill. Mu Yan even forgets that she's currently on a battlefield that's hanging by a thread. She wants to turn around and ask the old man what he's chanting. However, the next moment, something miraculous happened. The 2 demon blood servants that were rushing towards Mu Yan suddenly stopped moving. His face was tightly wrapped in red cloth, revealing only a pair of eyes. Those eyes were lifeless, like lifeless puppets. But at this moment, the pair of eyes quickly turned. Then, the 2 blood wardens slowly bent their legs, bowed their bodies, and bowed deeply towards Mu Yan. Yao Dao, who just killed a blood servant, Bloodstain, who was fighting with the 2 blood demon servants, Mo Lien, who is waiting for the blood servant to seriously injure Mayan. What the hell happened? Why would the blood demon servant kneel before the princess? Mo Lien suddenly came back to her senses, almost unable to control her emotions. Blood servant, what are you doing? However, the 2 blood servants kneeling on the ground were motionless, as if they were petrified. Mo Lien clenched her crystal wand so tightly that her knuckles turned white. How could this be? Why did the 2 blood servants suddenly cut off contact with her, and no longer listen to her orders? Why did the 2 blood servants kneel to Jun Mayan? Mo Lien's distorted face is hidden under the black veil. Chapter 42-26. Due to unknown reasons, Sogu is unable to find this site today. Dear readers, please remember this site's domain name, Sea of Books, and find your way home. After the blood servants heard the music, they slowed down as if they heard the old man's incantation. Behind him, the old man's eyes were as wide as copper bells, and his jaw almost dropped. Demon God above. What did he just hear? Her Royal Highness, what is she doing? She actually performed the Blood Demon's Decree incantation, perfectly and accurately with the music. He only recited it twice and Her Royal Highness learned it all. And the scariest thing was that Her Royal Highness' divine soul and sea of consciousness were so powerful. She used the music to control 10 blood servants at the same time. That was not an ordinary control move. It was to make the blood servants completely surrender. Even at his peak, he could not do it easily. That was a talent that only the demon chosen by heaven, who was qualified to become the Demon King's priest, could have. Her Royal Highness was a combat demon cultivator. How did she do it? As the strange music was played one by one, the blood servants' movements became slower and slower. Finally, they became the same as the 2 blood servants. Their red eyes moved crazily and their bodies stiffened. Then, they slowly bent their knees and knelt down one by one. Blood demons gather, greet the Lord. Blood demons gather, greet the Lord. The blood wardens were lifeless. None of them spoke, and none of them showed any expression. But in the ears of everyone in the priest hall, these words reverberated over and over again. The old man's eyes turned red and tears flowed down his cheeks. He held on to the pillar and knelt down shakily. He placed his forehead on the ground and murmured in a trembling voice that only he could hear, "Demon King above, greet the Lord. Devil Blade, pinch me and see if I'm dreaming." Devil Blade stretched out his hand and pinched Shue Jie's face. Shue Jie screamed, "Stupid blockhead, you really pinched me. This old lady's face is delicate and tender. If you break my face, you'll have to pay for it." Fiendish Blade agreed softly. However, Shue Jie didn't hear him at all. She was still immersed in the excitement that almost drove her crazy. Sword Genius, did you see that? The demon blood servant actually knelt down in front of the princess. Even the demon venerable couldn't command the blood demon servants and could only intimidate them. How did Her Highness do it? Yao Dao's gaze fell on Mu Yan. His eyes were filled with pure admiration and respect as he muttered, "Yes. His Highness is His Highness." No, perhaps Her Highness was not just Her Highness. He was a powerhouse who was even more heaven-defying than the Demon Lord. He was a supreme demon emperor who could lead the demon race to a higher peak. Chapter 42-27. Mo Lian suddenly grits her teeth and ruthlessly thrusts the crystal wand in her hand towards Mu Yan. The crystal wand disappears from her hand and appears in front of Mu Yan the next moment. Shue Jie shouts, "Princess, be careful. The demon blade's long sword is already swung through the air." Mu Yan raises her head while plucking the strings, the corners of her mouth slowly curl up and her fingertips lightly move. The strange, incantation-like music abruptly changed its direction and became intense and surging. Bang! The crystal wand hits the sound wall formed by divine hand weaves the heavens, and suddenly flies back. Mo Lian only feels a sharp pain in her chest and spits out a mouthful of blood. The crystal wand falls to the ground, making a tinkling sound. Mo Lian stares at Mu Yan in disbelief. The young girl slowly rose to her feet. There was a mocking smile on her enviably beautiful face as she looked at her. "Holy Maiden Mo Lian, what are you doing? The blood demon guards can't remove the karmic evils on me, so the Holy Maiden plans to do it yourself." A drop of sweat slides down from her forehead. Mo Lian grits her teeth and wipes the blood from the corner of her mouth. She barely manages to keep her voice steady. "Your Highness, what are you doing? The 12 blood demon guards are loyal servants of the demon emperor's priest, an existence that even the demon lord can't covet. What do you mean by controlling the 12 blood demon guards and making them submit to you? Does your Highness intend to become enemies with the priest hall?" Mu Yan glances at the blood demon guards kneeling on the ground and communicates with them with her divine sense. The incantation to control them naturally emerges in her mind. Her fingertips move slightly on the Tian Mo Chin and the figures of the blood demon guards slowly disappear. Mu Yan looks up at the ugly Mo Lien and says with a faint smile, "Oh, is that so? So the 12 blood demon guards belong exclusively to the demon emperor's priest. I'm really sorry, I didn't expect that the loyal servants of the priest would submit to me after I casually plucked the strings. How about this? I remember that the priest is still in seclusion. Why don't you wait for him to come out and then let him negotiate with me? Let's see if the 12 blood demon guards are more willing to follow the priest or me. After all, in this day and age, even if it's a master follower, it's still about mutual consent, isn't it?" The smile on Mayan's face is gentle, calm, and friendly. If the people of the Xiaoyao school were here, they would be able to tell at a glance. This smile was just as black-bellied as Chu Moli's. Puchi. Xue Jie couldn't help but laugh out loud while clinging onto Yao Dao's shoulder. Their Royal Highness was really too evil. But why did she like it so much? Mo Lien gripped her crystal wand so tightly that a cracking sound could be heard. "Your Highness, don't go too far. In this priest hall, even a demon sovereign wouldn't dare to be as arrogant as you. Don't forget, you still want to enter the Sky-Split Pavilion and see the 3 live stone. Have you really thought it through? Are you going to stubbornly insist on becoming enemies with my priest hall?" "Ah!" As soon as Mo Lien finished speaking, she suddenly let out a shrill cry. Her entire body was sent flying and heavily collided with a pillar. In the center of the priest hall, a black-clothed Jun Shirtian slowly descended. His ice-cold voice carries a bone-piercing killing intent, ringing in everyone's ears. This deity doesn't know that this deity doesn't dare to be arrogant in this priest hall. This deity wants to know how you're going to stop my daughter from entering the Sky-Split Pavilion. Hearing this, Xue Jie could not help but frown. She really wanted to go up and give her 2 slaps. No wonder she had always hated this Mo Lien. Her words were always beating around the bush, and she did not look what she looked like. She was just like those disgusting and hypocritical human spirit cultivators. However, before Xue Jie could move, she was pulled back by Yao Dao. Then, she heard Jun Shirtian's low laughter. The honored demon was laughing, but his laughter was extremely cold. He looked at Mo Lien as if he was looking at an ant that was jumping around. "Don't talk about whether or not my daughter is like you and will hinder the rise and fall of the devil race. Even if that's the case, I won't allow anyone to hurt her." Chapter 42-29. Due to unknown reasons, Sogu is suddenly unable to find this site. Mo Lien's voice came to an abrupt halt. A pained expression appeared on her face as she suddenly floated high in the air. A few strands of dark red silk twined around her neck and drilled into her body, causing her entire body to convulse in pain. Jun Shirtian's extremely cold voice rang in her ears. "So what? I only have this one daughter. To me, the entire devil race added together is not as important as her. If a god dares to touch my daughter, I'll slay the god. If a demon dares to hurt my daughter, I'll exterminate the demon. You said I don't have the qualifications to be the demon sovereign. Fine, if you have the ability, come kill me and take over my position. Otherwise, shut up and die." Mo Lien felt something tighten around her demon core, causing her life force to rapidly drain away. The face hidden behind the black veil finally revealed an expression of fear. She opened her mouth slightly and begged for mercy. Jun Shirtian sneered. Remembering that she was Zhong Li's disciple, he didn't kill her in the end and ruthlessly tossed her to the side. Mo Lien stood up in a sorry state and looked up at the demon servants of the priest hall. She thought they'd be angry and disappointed by Jun Shirtian's words. However, what greeted his eyes was an expression of worship that was more and more excited than the previous one. Mo Lian's face twisted under the black veil. Are these people idiots? Are they idiots? The supreme leader of the demon race only cares about his daughter and doesn't care about the future of the billions of demons. Why do they still worship and follow such a demon sovereign? Xue Jie looked at her twisted face and suddenly giggled. TSK TSK TSK, Holy Maiden Mo Lian, if I remember correctly, you were brought back by Lord Zhongli from the human race's spirit cultivators, right? I think you're also the child of a heaven-raised demon. You used to be a spirit cultivator but turned into a devil cultivator 30 years ago. However, even though your identity as a cultivator has changed, your way of thinking hasn't changed at all. Do you think we demons are as hypocritical as spirit cultivators? You want to use the disgusting methods of spirit cultivators to kidnap the demon sovereign. You're thinking too much. Our fiend race doesn't like this. What the demons were excited about was freedom, selfishness, and passion. They would cooperate, they would set some necessary rules, but they would not let these titles become a stumbling block to their freedom. Even for those who offered their devil souls to follow him, if they felt that they were following the wrong person, they would not hesitate to sever their connection with those devil souls. They would rather lose their cultivation than live against their own will. Chapter 42-31. Mu Yan can't help but laugh when she sees the man pretending to be calm but actually panicking. She also unknowingly heaves a sigh of relief in her heart. At least Ning Yan's sincerity is not wrong, at least her biological parents gave birth to her because of their undying love. Daddy. Mo Lian hears Jun Shirtian's words like being struck by lightning. What are you talking about? How can you only have one daughter, Jun Mayan? Look at my face, I really am your daughter. Jun Shirtian sneers. How many daughters does this Soon have? Don't tell me this Soon doesn't know. You and this Soon have no relationship. This Soon's patience is limited. Get out of the demon imperial city yourself, or let this Soon destroy your magic core and throw you out of the abyss. No. You can't do this to me. I'm your daughter, I'm also your daughter. Mo Lian cries herself hoarse. Why is it that both of us are daughters, but you dote on her without any principles, but don't put me in your heart at all? You say I'm not your daughter, then why do I look so similar to you? Tell me. Jun Shirtian's face shows a look of disgust, his tone becomes impatient. What reason does this Soon have to explain to you? Since you don't want to scram, then this Soon will send you to scram. With a wave of his hand, a red thread appeared in the air and wrapped itself around Ink Lotus. Ah! Mo Lian lets out a mournful scream and struggles with all her might, but the black and red threads become tighter and tighter, directly entering her flesh. That originally beautiful face was cut into pieces in an instant. It was extremely ugly. Seeing this scene, Xue Jie immediately heaves a sigh of relief. The fingers holding the demon blade also become happy and caressing. Good, good. Lord Demon Lord is being so lenient, that means he really has no relationship with Mo Lian. Thinking that if Mo Lian was a princess, she would have to pay respects to her and listen to her orders, Xue Jie simply wants to vomit. It would be best if she could directly kill this disgusting woman and turn her into ashes. Xue Jie's face shows an excited and longing expression, her cheeks are flushed red. But the next moment, her dream is shattered. Lord Demon Lord, please be lenient. A warm and magnetic voice suddenly sounded out in the priest hall. At the same time, a green radiance flickered and enveloped Mo Lian's body, isolating the dark red threads released by Jun Shirtian. When the old man standing behind Mu Yan heard this voice, his entire body suddenly trembled. His hands tightly clenched into fists, and his teeth almost broke. He used all the strength in his body to prevent himself from losing control of himself. Instead, he does his utmost to restrain his trembling and lowers his head, hiding his stooped figure behind Mayan. Mu Yan looks back at him without leaving a trace. She takes out a talisman that conceals her aura and sticks it on his body. Almost at the same time, a man wearing a gray robe slowly landed in the priest hall and bowed to Jun Shirtian. Priest Zhongli pays his respects to Lord Demon Lord. Then he looks at Mayan, the corners of his mouth slowly curling up, paying respects to your highness. Mu Yan slightly narrows her eyes, sizing up the man in front of her. He was about 35 or 36 years old, his skin was pale, his eyes were dark green, and his appearance was delicate and weak. At first glance, he looked like a sickly and weak young man, completely inconsistent with the supreme identity of the Demon Emperor's priest. Xue Jie and Yao Dao also left the priest hall. The gentle smile on Zhong Li's face suddenly disappeared. He found a chair and sat down. He held a glass of wine in his hand and took a sip as he stared coldly at Mo Lien, who was kneeling on the ground. What did I tell you before? Mo Lien crouched on the ground and shivered. Her face was filled with fear. Who told you to take off your veil? Who allowed you to reveal your relationship with the Demon Lord? Mo Lien said in a trembling voice, Master, it's my fault, but I really can't stand it. I'm clearly the daughter of the Demon Lord. Why can Mu Yan be pampered and pampered, but I have nothing? I can't accept this, I really can't. Mo Lien cried herself hoarse, indignant and unwilling. She did not raise her head, so she did not see the contempt in Zhong Li's eyes. Chapter 42-35. Mercy City, Boundless Sea in the West. Outside Debii Temple, there was a huge town named Mercy City. Mercy City was the most peaceful and benevolent town in the world. No one dared to attack Mercy City, be it spirit cultivators or devil cultivators, polar domain or netherworld. That was because Debii Temple was at the center of Mercy City. There were 3 immortal masters in Debii Temple, plus Bodhidharma, the first Buddhist. However, at this moment, Mercy City was covered with corpses and blood. Who are you? Don't you know this is Mercy City protected by Debii Temple, the holy land of the Orthodox Alliance? What kind of demons are you? How dare you massacre people in Mercy City? Ha ha ha, Mercy City. Mercy my ass. 11 of the Dark Knight sect laughed hysterically. Those bald donkeys have done all kinds of evil things outside, leaving blood and pain to others, and then built a clean Mercy City here. Do you think it's a paradise? Bah! Do you know that your peace and tranquility are bought by stepping on other people's corpses and blood? The people of Mercy City had no idea what 11 of the Dark Knight sect was talking about. They just cursed angrily. Nonsense. The masters of Debii Temple are the most compassionate people. How could they do such evil things? You madmen dare to offend the sacred land of Buddhism and even slander us, tarnishing Buddha. You will definitely suffer retribution. 11 of the Dark Knight sect stopped laughing. Why do I have to talk nonsense with you idiots? I just need to kill. I don't believe those bald donkeys can still hide after I've killed enough people. Saber light flashed and blood splashed. Screams, wails, and curses filled the air, intertwined into the most sinful and bloody music in the world. 7 of the Dark Knight sect glanced at the battlefield from time to time from the high observation deck. Then he could not help but cast his eyes on the man who was leaning against the railing. His cold and fair skin looked as fair and transparent as jade under the sunlight. Even if one peeked from behind, one could still see the delicate and charming lines of the man's face. There wasn't a single part of him that wasn't perfect, there wasn't a single part of him that wasn't peerlessly handsome, there wasn't a single part of him that wasn't able to shake one's heart and soul. If such a man wasn't immortal, he would be the darling of heaven and earth. He would be the favored son of heaven that thousands of women and even men would crazily pursue. But now, who would have thought that he had already fused with the world-destroying half-soul and had become the destroyer that held the fate of the 3 realms and 6 paths in his hands? To be able to fuse with the world-destroying half-soul, the pain and torture this person had experienced must have far surpassed everyone in the burning heavens. In fact, the accumulated darkness and hatred in his body far surpassed all of them. After you die, those 2 bald donkeys, Shanhui and Subhoodie, will come out. Naturally, my master will personally kill them. Jueming frowned. Who on earth are you? We, the Debii Temple, have been isolated from the world for more than 100 years. We believe that we have always been compassionate and have delivered all living beings from suffering. We have never done anything that goes against reason and nature. Why are you slandering us with filthy words and insulting the reputation of the Debii Temple? You even killed innocent people in Mercy City. Aren't you afraid of retribution? There's no mercy in Mercy City. There are only chess pieces that can be discarded and used at will. Xianzhen, I won't be able to kill you today, but I'll be waiting for you in hell. I'll wait for you to be burdened with sins and fall with me, ha 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 ha. Anya San's body was also wrapped in black flames. The flames burned more and more fiercely, slowly engulfing him completely. Old Third. He was clearly walking towards death, but there was a carefree smile on his face. This was because he could see the resentment and distrust in the eyes of the citizens of Mercy City towards Xianzhen. Once the seed of doubt was planted, it would one day burn into a raging inferno. It would burn all the hypocritical bald donkeys of Debii Temple to ashes. Anya San slowly closed his eyes, waiting for the decaying curse to burn him to ashes. Chapter 42-41. This was the last sound Xianzhen heard. Cold, indifferent, emotionless. There was no hatred or hysteria in it, but it was more terrifying than the crazy hatred of the 3rd Master of the Dark Knight. Was this a demon that could destroy the world? Luo Yunxiao put away the red cloud sword, one of the 12 natal swords, and turned to look at Jueming. Take me to the entrance of the boundary of Debii Temple. Otherwise, I'll use the Darkeen Holy Flame to burn down the entire Mercy City. Under the hidden abyss. Mu Yan doesn't know how long she has been dreaming, and she doesn't know whether the dream is good or bad. However, the moment she opened her eyes, she still remembered that the last scene in the dream was in the starry school in the cultivation land. The silver moon hung high in the sky, and the stars twinkled. Di Mingju, Xiao Bao, and everyone from the Xiaoyao school are by his side. They played the zither, sang, drank wine, and danced with their swords. Their laughter filled the world, and it was like a trickle of water that brushed past her heart. But even though it was such a happy and warm scene, she couldn't stop her tears from flowing down. At that time, how could they have imagined that this life and this night would not last long, and that there would be no place to see the bright moon next year? At that time, how could they have imagined that one day, the Xiaoyao school, which they had once regarded as their home, would fall apart? They had lost their master and their junior uncle. From then on, their home was still there, but they had become orphans. Junior sister, you're awake. Yun Ruhan helped her up in surprise. How are you feeling? Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere? Mu Yan slowly reaches out to touch her cheek. She thought she would touch a wet and cold face, but there was nothing. There were no tears. She cried in her dream, but when she woke up, she couldn't even cry anymore. Eldest senior brother. She heard her hoarse and almost broken voice. I saw the engagement between me and youngest martial uncle on the 3 live stone. Yun Ruhan's breathing suddenly froze, and her pupils shrank. He instinctively doesn't want to hear Mayan's next words. However, the girl's hoarse and trembling voice still drilled into his mind. The stone of 3 lives has cracked, and the thread of marriage has been severed. The demonic deity said that it might be because one of the parties contracted has died. Mu Yan raised her head and looked at Yun Ruhan with hope in her eyes. Eldest senior brother, do you think junior uncle master is really dead? Is he really dead? After a pause, she gritted her teeth and said, I don't believe it. The sorrow in his eyes gradually turned into a burning flame. As long as I don't see little martial uncle's corpse, I will never believe that little martial uncle is really dead. I don't believe it either. Yun Ruhan heard her own somewhat hoarse voice. Every one of us narrowly escaped death. We almost didn't even have a complete corpse. If we could survive, how could Uncle Master die so easily when he's so powerful? His voice slowly became smoother from the difficulty it was in. He didn't know if he was trying to convince Mu Yan, or if he was trying to convince himself. Junior sister, don't worry. Isn't the enchantment banquet going to be held in the hidden abyss? When the time comes, cultivators from all over the Shushan continent will gather. If junior martial uncle hears the news, he will definitely rush over. Even if little martial uncle doesn't come, Instructor Mo will come. With the help of the demonic deity and Instructor Mo, we must find little martial uncle even if we have to turn the entire Shushan continent upside down. If we still can't find him, then we'll widely accept disciples. The 7 of us will go to every inch of the 3 realms and 6 paths. As long as we don't see little martial uncle's corpse, as long as we don't confirm his death, we won't give up. Chapter 42-42. The Xiaoyao sect can't afford to lose anyone. Listening to Yun Ruhan's soft and hoarse voice, Mayan feels that her heart, which has been gripped tightly by something, finally gets a chance to breathe. Her dry eyes are wet and hot, and something flows down. She looks at Yun Ruhan's eyes and nods. Okay, let's go find him. Even if we have to turn the whole world upside down, we must find little martial uncle. Yun Ruhan sees the tears in her eyes and sighs in relief. He gets up and says, the demon lord has been waiting for you outside for several days. Every day, he would use his devil chi to heal you, and then leave in a hurry. Little martial sister, do you want to see him? Mayan is startled, and after a while, she says, how many days have I been asleep? It's been 7 days. Yun Ruhan says, the Tianmei banquet will start in 3 days, and the boundary of the hidden abyss will open in 3 days. So, Di Mingju should be coming soon. Mayan's heart suddenly raises an urgent desire. She wants to see Di Mingju, she wants to see Xiao Bao, she misses them like crazy. She gets up and says, I'm going to see the demon lord. However, before she gets out of bed, a figure appears in the room. The demon lord says coldly, if you need anything, you can tell me. Although his attitude is arrogant and cold, his eyes are full of concern and worry, which betrays the demon lord. Mayan remembers that when she was unconscious in front of the 3-life stone, this silly father completely lost control. She can't help but soften her brows. Did you eavesdrop on what I said to Big Brother just now? The demon lord purses his lips and doesn't speak. He is a dignified demon lord, how can he say that he eavesdrops? And eavesdropping on his daughter? He definitely can't admit it. Can you give me a copy of the list of the Tianmei banquet? His daughter doesn't ask any more questions, which makes Jun Shirtian feel relieved. With a cold face, he concisely says, yes. But he secretly sends a message to the attendants outside, telling them to prepare the detailed list of the Tianmei banquet. After giving the order, Jun Shirtian says, I will send someone to investigate Luo Yunxiao's whereabouts. Whether she is dead or alive, I will find her. I don't need the polar domain's help. Mayan coughs lightly. How did Di Mingju offend you? How did he offend him? Speaking of this, Jun Shirtian felt like gnashing his teeth. He knew the whereabouts of his precious daughter but refused to tell him. His precious daughter is clearly still so young, but she has already given birth to a child with Di Mingju. In other words, his family's precious daughter has already been snatched away by this beast, Di Mingju. Now you're asking me how I offended him. If Di Mingju were in front of him right now, Jun Shirtai would really want to tear him to pieces. Of course, the premise was that he could beat them. Jun Shirtian took a deep breath. Don't worry, I won't lower myself to his level. However, there are millions and millions of good men in the world. Yan Yan, you don't need to hang yourself on him. Mu Yan, how dare you say you didn't defend him? You still dare to say that you don't have any special knowledge. While they were talking, they heard Xue Jie's excited voice from outside the house. Your Highness, I heard that you're awake. Can I come in? Come in. Your Highness, quickly come and take a look at the Tianmei banquet dress that this subordinate has prepared for you. I guarantee that after you wear it, those little whores of spirit cultivators will all feel ashamed of their inferiority, and those men will all prostrate themselves under your skirt, ha 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 ha. Chapter 42-45. Mu Yan gently caressed the soft cloth on her body. A distant and illusory picture appeared in her mind. The hand that the man used to hold a sword was holding a needle and thread. He was clumsily and carefully sewing the baby's clothes. After a few times, his movements became smooth and skillful. The small clothes slowly took shape in his hand. The man raised his head and showed a proud smile to the gentle woman not far from him. He waved the clothes in his hand. That smile was silly, totally different from that of the high and mighty demon lord. It carried the pride and gentleness that no father in the world could have. Mu Yan felt that her heart suddenly became soft. The resentment and hatred in her heart turned into burning feelings at this moment. She heard herself say in a low and hoarse voice, "Thank you, Father. Thank you for everything you did for me." Bang! A loud noise came from outside the door. Xue Jie subconsciously raised her head to look, and then the expression on her face gradually froze. What did she just see? Their great, arrogant, supreme demon lord had fallen. Was it an illusion? It must be an illusion, right? On the roof of the high palace, Yun Ruhan was sitting on it. He was drinking wine and overlooking the entire demon imperial city. As the eldest disciple of the Xiaoyao school, he had always been calm, steady, and self-restrained. He wanted to teach the younger disciples not to cause too much trouble. Otherwise, they would be the target of public criticism and get hurt. From the moment his master died, he told himself that he wanted to be the guardian of the Xiaoyao school. He wanted to protect the Xiaoyao school from losing anyone. He needed to get stronger, to be tough, to be able to protect the carefree society, and to be the support of his junior brothers and sisters. He couldn't cry even if he was in pain. He couldn't show even if he was afraid or sad. He couldn't give up even if he was desperate. Otherwise, what should he do with the younger sister who was already in pain? Otherwise, how could he comfort the other disciples when the Xiaoyao school gathered together? However, no one knew that Yun Ruhan could also feel pain and sadness. The cold night would be wrapped in despair. Young martial uncle. That was the young martial uncle who had been with the Xiaoyao school for dozens of years. Even though he seemed indifferent, he actually saved them again and again and taught them to grow up little by little. Their master was dead. If even the young martial uncle left them, Yun Ruhan suddenly raised her head, wanting to finish the wine in the gourd in one gulp. However, halfway through, a small hand snatched away the wine jug. Yun Ruhan turned her head in surprise to see a girl who looked no more than 15 or 16 years old holding a flask of wine and gulping it down in one gulp. Delicious. Good wine. It's been a long time since I've had such a strong wine. Yun Ruhan couldn't react to the girl's soft voice, but the words she said were extremely vulgar. Yu Ruo turned to look at him. Why are you looking at me? Can't bear to part with your wine. She turned over the wine pot in her hand and revealed a sly smile. It's useless even if you don't want to. I've already drunk it all. The girl's cheeks were flushed, and her almond-shaped eyes looked as if they had been washed, clean and hazy. Yun Ruhan snapped out of her sorrowful state and whispered, Lord Yuru, why are you here? What lord? Do I look old? Yu Ruo glared at him. Besides, if you're here, why can't I be here? You still have wine. Give it to me. Chapter 42-46. The young girl saw the other 2 jugs of wine behind Yun Ruhan and immediately pounced overexcitedly. Before Yun Ruhan could react, she had already opened the jug and started drinking. Delicious, burp, this feels so good. Smelly old chi, he won't even let me drink. Hee, I'm going to drink. I'm going to piss him off. Yun Ruhan, give me the wine. Do you hear me? All the wine is mine. Yun Ruhan looked at the young girl who was trying to snatch the wine from him, only to stumble and fall into his arms. Yun Ruhan then realized something. Lady Yuyue, you're drunk. Lady what lady? I told you not to call me lady, you're making me sound old. Yun Ruhan pursed his lips and said softly, Yuyue, you're drunk. Wrong. Yuyue raised a white, tender finger. I'm a demoness, I won't get drunk even if you're drunk, understand? Hey, Yun Ruhan, stop swaying, I can't even see you clearly. Yun Ruhan felt 2 small hands grabbing at his face, as if trying to fix it. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He hadn't expected the dignified captain of the Blood Demon Guards to act like this when she was drunk. Stop. Hee, you're obedient now. Stop swaying, if you do. I'll. A warm softness pressed against the corner of his lips, causing Yun Ruhan to freeze and almost stop breathing. If you do, I won't be able to kiss you. The young girl looked at him with hazy eyes, her bright red lips slightly curled up. Under the moonlight, she looked both cute and sexy, causing Yun Ruhan's mouth to go dry. After a long while, he finally found his voice. Yuyue, what are you doing? Kissing you, the drunken lowly demoness said confidently. Why, kiss me? Because you're my magical pet, I won't allow you to be sad. If you're sad, I'll kiss you. Yun Ruhan opened his mouth. How do you know? I'm sad. But Yuyue was so drunk that she didn't seem to hear him at all. She cupped Yun Ruhan's face and said softly, Yun Ruhan, don't be sad, okay? When I see you sad, here is especially painful, especially sore. I don't like this feeling. I'll kiss you, you don't have to be sad. As she spoke, Yu swayed and pressed her lips against Yun Ruhan's again. But this time, the bump was even more inaccurate. He didn't even kiss the corner of his lips, only his face. You're so annoying. I told you not to move. You stop, don't sway, or else I won't be able to kiss you. Be good. Yun Ruhan took a deep breath, her eyes unfathomable. He heard himself saying in a hoarse voice, Yu, if you can't kiss me, how about I kiss you instead? Yu blinked her watery eyes as she pondered over the meaning of this sentence. His entire body was pulled over. Then, all his breathing was completely swallowed by the rich and scorching aura. The warm morning sun fell on her face. Yu frowned uncomfortably and opened her eyes. What he saw was a vast expanse of blue sky, white clouds, and dazzling sunlight. The tip of his nose was still filled with the smell of alcohol, as well as a strange yet familiar scent. Yu pressed his hand against his head and sat up. What happened? Why was she sleeping here? Was this the roof of the demon palace? A cool feeling suddenly fell on her forehead, and someone stuffed a pill into her mouth. Chapter 42-47. Yu was still a bit slow from the hangover, and she swallowed the pill without any vigilance. The tip of her tongue even touched the warm fingertips. The fingertips on her lips didn't move away, but continued to press against her lips ambiguously. Only then did Yu realize that Yun Ruhan was right in front of her. You. She wanted to ask, why are you here? However, the memory from last night slowly came back to her. Yu remembered seeing the figure on the roof outside the palace. It was so far away, and there was even a barrier between them, but she recognized it at a glance. It was her magical pet, Yun Ruhan. The palace was incomparably noble, and any demon who dared to go up to the roof would definitely be killed by the demon blood guards. But Yun Ruhan didn't know any of this, and the demon blood guards didn't dare order him around because of his relationship with the princess. But at the same time, no one dared to approach him. That lonely figure looked so lonely and forlorn. By the time Yu reacted, she was already on the roof of the palace, snatching the wine from the man's hand and downing it. Yu would be punished for disrespecting the palace, and you'd get drunk just by touching the wine. Yu only knew that she didn't want to see the man drink wine, but it was as if he was drinking tears, swallowing the pain and despair in his heart. She also didn't want to see her familiar always wrapping himself up tightly, being dignified and steady, but always having to endure and restrain himself. That would be too tiring and painful. Even her heart began to ache along with it. She wanted her magical pet to laugh from the bottom of his heart. Then, she got drunk. What happened next? Yu opened her mouth. Did I do anything after I got drunk last night? Yun Ruhan found it funny, but she didn't show it on her face. If you did, will you take responsibility? What, responsibility? And who allowed you to call me Yu? Call me Lady Yu. Yun Ruhan grunted softly. But you said last night that Lady Yu made you sound old, and you wanted me to call you Yu. Yu. Did she really say that? It seemed like she really did think that way, and that was why she said it after getting drunk. After a long while, Yu asked guiltily, what else did I say? You didn't say anything, Yu heaved a sigh of relief. Yun Ruhan continued, but he did it. What did I do? As soon as Yu's voice fell, the man's hand pressed down on her back and his warm lips pressed against hers. As their breaths intertwined with each other, it was as if the world had become long and lingering at this moment. By the time Yun Ruhan released her, Yu's mind was blank, and her face was so red that it looked like it was about to burn. She raised her head and glared at Yun Ruhan. What are you doing? Yun Ruhan's chest heaved up and down, her eyes deep and unfathomable. If the old man were to stand next to Zhongli of the priest hall, 9.5 out of 10 people would be convinced that the seemingly weak but mysterious man of the priest hall was the real demon emperor's priest. However, when Mu Yan looks into the old man's eyes, she almost instantly believes his words. Because this pair of turbid eyes filled with grief, despair, and pain would not lie. Because when the old man asked this question, the sound of his heartbeat and the change in his aura would not lie. Of course, the most important thing was that the old man had signed the demon god curse with her, so he could not deceive her in any way. Mu Yan nodded and said, "I believe you." These 4 simple words caused the old man's eyes to turn red. Tears welled up in his eyes. He quickly bowed his head and rubbed away in embarrassment. Chapter 42-49. Mu Yan asked, "Get up, sit down and tell me slowly. What happened? Since you are the demon emperor's priest, why did you become like this today? What's the relationship between you and that Zhongli of the priest hall?" The old man closed his eyes, and his heaving chest slowly calmed down. He stood up according to Mu Yan's words and casually found a seat to sit down. After careful observation, Mu Yan found that the old man's bearing was indeed different from that of ordinary beggars. It was just that when he was in Cloud City, he deliberately concealed all of this. His mouth was particularly poisonous, so people ignored these characteristics. The one in the priest hall, he was not originally called Zhongli. His name was Wenjie. He used to be my only personal disciple, the holy son of the priest hall, and the candidate for the next demon emperor's priest. I dedicated my whole life to the demon god. Because I foresaw the mandate of heaven, I was destined to have no wife, no children, no blood relatives in this life. So I treated Wenjie as my own son. However, in a great battle 1,000 years ago, Wenjie and I were seriously injured. Wenjie's life was at stake. Regardless of the fact that my injury might worsen, I transferred a part of my demon's soul to him and passed out. When he said this, the old man's hands were clenched tightly, and his voice was tainted with a trace of deep-rooted hatred. I managed to save his life with great difficulty, but when I woke up, I found that my appearance had changed, my magic core was damaged and could not be restored, and my cultivation was gone. And standing in front of me was Zhongli, who had exactly the same appearance as me. Although his voice had changed, as soon as he opened his mouth, I knew that it was Wenjie, the disciple I treated like my own son, and even sacrificed my lifespan for him. With the same face as me, he pointed at me and told his subordinates that I was a thief who wanted to sneak into the priest hall to steal things, and asked them to throw me into the main city of 1 star. At that time, I really wanted to jump up and ask him why he did this to me. But I knew I couldn't. Wenjie doesn't know that I'm awake. Otherwise, even if he doesn't kill me immediately, he would surely think of other ways to shackle and torture me. Then, I was thrown into the 1-star main city, Ashbone City. At that time, I had not completely given up hope. I thought that as long as I could find a way to return to the Demon Imperial City and see my good friend Minwei, I would be able to expose Wenjie's true colors. But soon, I found out that there were people monitoring me in Ashbone City. There were several times when I met a powerful alchemist and asked for help. However, in a blink of an eye, that alchemist would be killed and I would be beaten up. I wouldn't be able to get up for 10 days or half a month. A look of pain and despair appeared on the old man's face. Chapter 42-50. Under the soothing sound of the zither, the old man's expression returned to normal, and then he continued, gradually, I knew that Wenjie would never give me a chance to make a comeback. But I don't know why, he also refused to let me die. Many times, when the devil energy in my body had dissipated and the wounds on my body were festering and I was begging for death, his people would appear again and hang on to my rotten life. Mu Yen slightly frowned, showing a thoughtful expression. The old man said, "This situation lasted for hundreds of years. I couldn't die, but I couldn't live either. I just lived like a walking corpse in the Ashbone City. Then suddenly one day, the person Wenju arranged to be around me disappeared. It seemed that he didn't need to care about whether I was alive or dead. Or, to him, I was like an ant, as insignificant as garbage. I slowly struggled from the 1-star Ashbone City to the 2-star main city, and then to the 3-star Cloud City. Although I was stepped into hell again and again, I still had hope. As long as I could enter the Demon Imperial City, as long as I could see the Demon Venerable or Elder Minwei, maybe I could make a comeback and take back everything that belonged to me. But, all my hope turned into despair after I heard that the Demon Venerable had changed owners. 1,000 years ago, Jun Shirtian was accidentally framed by his brother and was cursed by the lovesickness demon curse. Elder Minwei and several trusted subordinates seemed to have rescued Jun Shirtian. The demon imperial priest Zhongli proposed that to solve the lovesickness demon curse, one had to take one soul and 3 spirits and experience hundreds of tribulations. Nearly 1,000 years later, the demon venerable fell into a deep sleep. Elder Minwei, Tianhe, Devil Blade, Snow Girl, Wine Boy, and the demon imperial priest Zhongli all remained dormant. Those who stayed in the demon imperial city were all people that the old man didn't know. Even if he entered the demon imperial city, what could he do? Who would believe the words of a useless demon soldier? Moreover, he didn't even know where Wenju was now. The old man showed a bitter smile and said in a deep voice, "I was muddle-headed for another 100 years." The demon venerable returned, unified the hidden abyss, and all the demons surrendered to him. Everyone knew that the demon venerable's second in command was the high priest Zhongli, who solved the lovesickness demon curse and saved the demon venerable's life. What's a piece of trash like me? Even if I really crawl back to the demon imperial city, who would believe me? I thought that my life would be like this. Maybe one day I would die in a corner, and no one would know, no one would remember. The first half of my life was like a dream. Other than that wretched disciple Wenju, no one would know. However, never would I have imagined that there would be life at the end of the world. How could I have imagined that I would encounter your highness in Cloud City? Mu Yen was puzzled. I remember that when you first saw me, you were very rude to me. At that time, you probably didn't recognize me. But later, they said that you had been waiting outside the inn. Moreover, the immortal slaying city had obviously sealed off the information about my identity, but you called me your highness the moment you saw me. The old man's face revealed a trace of embarrassment, and then he said gratefully, "It's the bag of magic pills that the princess left me, which allowed my magic core to recover a little. I used this 9 Devils Heaven-defying bead to divine your identity." Mu Yen stares blankly, her face revealing a puzzled expression. The old man seemed to have seen through her doubts. With a wave of his hand, a sparkling and translucent crystal ball appeared in his palm. His actions, habits, strength, there were flaws in every aspect. The old man had also mentioned that he and Elder Minwei had been good friends back in the Demon Palace. Since that was the case, how could Elder Minwei not have noticed it after so many years? Was there really someone in the world who could impersonate another person for 1,000 years without revealing any flaws? Suddenly, something flashed through Mu Yan's mind, and his expression became slightly serious. No, there was still something in the world that could allow a person to perfectly impersonate another person. Magnificent quicksand. She recalled the time when Ling Qingwan pretended to be her. Although there were many flaws, it was true that the face did not have any traces of disguise or magic to change its appearance. But it was truly very similar to her. Third senior brother had once said that the magnificent quicksand was a very special and treacherous medicine. In fact, it could not even be called a medicine anymore. It was a kind of luck-snatching curse. Chapter 42-52. If the wind quicksand is perfectly refined, not only can it have the same appearance as the one who is under the spell, it can even snatch the other party's luck. And once the luck is snatched, the person who takes the wind quicksand will slowly possess the other party's talent, strength, and even their living habits. They can imitate them perfectly. Third senior brother once said that the effect of the wind quicksand was not good after Ling Qingwan took it. Apart from the imperfection of the drug, the most important thing was that Mu Yan's own luck was strong enough. And the wind quicksand is very interesting in this aspect. If the snatcher's luck is stronger than the one being snatched, then the one being snatched will be stripped of everything bit by bit, until he is completely abandoned by the world. But if it is the other way around, and the one being snatched has a stronger luck than the snatcher, then the person who takes the wind quicksand will unknowingly lose his luck, and eventually become more and more unfortunate. Mu Yan slightly narrows her eyes and looks at the old man. Have you heard of the wind quicksand? The old man, or Zhongli, slightly frowns, revealing an expression of deep thought. The name is somewhat familiar, but at this moment, he can't remember where he had heard it. Mu Yan roughly explains the origin, effect, and refining method of the wind quicksand that she knows. Zhongli's eyes suddenly widen, and his body trembles violently. His eyes burst forth with shock, understanding, resentment, and pain. So that's how it is, so that's how it is. That traitorous disciple had too many opportunities to take my blood, my hair, and my personal belongings. He had been preparing for this a long time ago. He was just waiting for me to be heavily injured on the battlefield and my luck to weaken. Then, he would consume the magnificent quicksand. Ha, ha ha ha, but why didn't he think about why I was seriously injured? Why did my luck weaken? I did it to save his life. Mu Yan lightly says, perhaps he was seriously injured in order to trick you into saving him. Zhongli's pupils suddenly contract, and his hands tightly clench into fists. The joints of his whole body make cracking sounds. Obviously, he is extremely angry, and also extremely hateful. Your Royal Highness. Zhongli slowly kneels before Mu Yan. Please forgive me, Your Royal Highness. You saved this old servant, but I only cared about my personal grudge, and I may even bring danger to you. But, if I'm unable to kill that rascal, if I'm unable to seize back the name and identity that belongs to me, then I'm truly unwilling. Princess, please allow me to take revenge. Mu Yan raises her hand to let him get up, and says in a low voice, this matter is perhaps no longer just a grudge between you and Wenjie. This person gave up his name and identity and lurked in the demon clan for thousands of years. Chapter 42-55. However, this young man was also very weak. He didn't have any spiritual power around him, and his face was abnormally pale. When he was just rescued, even his throat was broken and he couldn't speak. Chu Moli really helped him a lot during this period of time, and he finally found a target for revenge. He could endure being humiliated, but he definitely couldn't endure Chu Moli being trampled on like him. The minister wanted to stand in front of Chu Moli, but he was pulled back by Han Weijiang's subordinates. What's the rush? If you want to get beaten up by our second young master, you won't be out of it. Second young master, I've been unhappy with this cripple since just now. You must let him have a good taste of your power. I think this cripple looks pretty good, why don't we bring him back? He. Han Weijiang grabbed Chu Moli's clothes, and grinned evilly. about to drag him down from the wheelchair. However, before he could move, his neck was suddenly grabbed by a wide and powerful palm. Immediately after, his whole body was lifted up high. Han Weijiang didn't even have time to feel the suffocating pain and powerful pressure before he opened his eyes wide in disbelief. "Qinzhou, what are you doing?" Han Weijiang's subordinates also reacted. "Qinzhou, what are you doing? Quickly put down second young master. Qinzhou, do you want to rebel?" Someone rushed up and used a fist wrapped in immortal energy to attack Qinzhou. However, Qinzhou completely ignored them, as if they were tickling him. He grabbed Han Weijiang's neck with one hand, and punched with the other. Countless earth spikes rose from the ground, and directly sent Han Weijiang's subordinates flying. Qinzhou then turned to look at Chu Moli, and asked nervously, Are you alright?" Chu Moli revealed a somewhat funny expression, and said warmly, "Second senior brother, long time no see." Qinzhou's face reddened a bit. He wasn't good at expressing his feelings, and couldn't understand complicated emotions. But at this moment, his sparkling eyes still reflected his excited emotions. "Good, long time no see. Third brother, it's great that you're alive." Chu Moli said, "Not only me, little junior sister and the others are all alive. And this time, they should all be gathered at the heavenly enchantment banquet." He didn't even have time to say the last sentence before he had to remind his trembling second senior brother. "Second senior brother, the person in your hand is about to be crushed to death by you." Only then did Qinzhou suddenly come back to his senses, and hurriedly let go. Looking at Han Weijiang, whose eyes had turned white and whose face had turned purple, he was at a loss. Is he dead?" I didn't mean to." He looked at Chu Moli in a somewhat flustered manner, wanting to know if he had gotten himself into trouble. Chu Moli asked indifferently, "This person is?" Han Weijiang's servants suddenly came back to their senses. When his fellow disciples were present, he would unconditionally listen to them. Han Zheming's gaze towards Chu Moli couldn't help but deepen. This man clearly looked extremely weak, as if he did not even have the cultivation of a golden immortal. However, Yuzhing Qing, who was at the peak of the golden immortal realm, and Qinzhou, who even he was slightly afraid of, completely followed his lead. Who was this person? Han Zheming's mind spun at lightning speed, but he didn't show it on his face. He cupped his hands towards Chu Moli and said, "I am Han Zheming of the Polar Domain's Han clan. May I know who you are?" Chu Moli said in a gentle voice, "Xiaoyao sect, Chu Moli. This is Thunder Ray sect's Yuzhing Qing." Han Zheming said, "It's an honor to meet you." Yuzhing Qing sneered, "Honor my ass. Thunder Ray's sect has already been exterminated. I have never heard of Xiaoyao's sect. How can it be an honor to meet you?" Han Zheming was rebuked, but he didn't get angry at all. He still had a gentle and calm smile on his face. Coupled with his outstanding face, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that he was an elegant young master. "So, Qinzhou is also a member of Xiaoyao's sect?" "But I can't sincerely marry the demon princess, because in my heart, there's already a place for another woman. Big brother Han." Tears streamed down Shi Yanfei's face. She threw herself into Han Zheming's arms and sobbed, "I don't care, brother Han. You're the only one in my heart. Even if you marry the demon princess, I will not give up. Since the demon race princess can hug one on each side, why can't you? As long as Big Brother Han has me in your heart, even if I have to share you with another woman, even if I have to submit to the demon race's princess, I'm willing." The two of them hid in a corner of the palace and hugged each other tightly. Han Zhiming couldn't help but kiss her lips. When the two of them separated, Shi Yanfei was even more confused and infatuated. You're tuning in to the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.